So I first want to preface this review with uh, an apology. I know this is not great, being in a car and reviewing, but I wanted to get this review, out as quick as possible, and I hope this will suffice. I do want to get better, a room setup and all that jazz, but um, hopefully this is okay. I just saw the film The Big Sick. Um, and this had a lot of buzz coming out of film festivals, and I really wanted to get a chance to see it for myself. And I was lucky to get into a theater that doesn't really show a lot of movies like this, and it showed. It doesn't have a lot of I didn't have a lot of faces in the crowd, in my theater at least. I'm just lucky to see it. um, but getting on with it, The Big Sick is directed by Michael Showalter. He wrote Wet Hot American Summer and directed an episode of another Apatow produced show, or project rather, Love, which, if you guys haven't seen, you should really check it out. It's got the Apatow style, but the concept is really, really neat. Take on modern romance and all that. But he's directed some short films that I haven't gotten a chance to check out, but I might after this. Um, and it's written by Emily Gordon and Kamal. He's got a last name that I wish I could do justice. It's not too complicated, but he doesn't deserve my butchering name skills, uh, whatever you want to call it. Um, but they do a tremendous job of really showing, um, of writing really a vulnerable, script. It's going deep into Kamal's, uh, vulnerable side of him. This is a very critical point in his life, and it shows through the narrative and the passion behind his eyes and the performance, really. But it stars Kamal, obviously, as himself. It stars Zoe uh, Kazan as Emily, Holly Hunter as Beth, Ray Romano as Terry, and their parents of Emily, and also some surprise faces in the crowd. Bo Burnham, the comedian that I really enjoy, and then Aidy Bryant from SNL. They both have acting chops that in film that I didn't really expect, but their performances are well earned. Um, uh, but this follows Kamal during a time that he was making ends meet in Chicago by being an Uber driver and a stand-up comedian at night. And during these sets, one of these sets at least, he finds Emily, an American woman, um, and they have a nice night out, and things go some places, and it's getting romantic, and they're not sure where it's gonna go, and they're having some flirtatious resisting and kind of deadpan type humor that I enjoy. Um, but when the night ends, obviously he takes him, or her rather, back to her house because he's the Uber driver, which is funny. Um, but then we quickly go back to or rather get introduced to his family dynamic at home. Really opens your eyes to the cultural, circumstances, um, and the family, more specifically his mother, chooses to bring in candidates for an arranged marriage, which is uh, a tradition in their culture. Um, and they do it every night over dinner, which is really awkward. And they have some witty writing in there that's really, you know, it's smart and sharp. Um, but things are getting serious with Emily, and he's kind of keeping it behind his family's back because he's not sure, how to expose it, how to, get it to them in a sincere way that won't, freak them out. But Emily eventually finds out, the secret is exposed, and she's appalled and she doesn't know how to deal with it, so she kind of just leaves, which is interesting and ironic because she's a therapist. There's some witty writing on that. But uh, things pass over, and Kamal's not sure how he's supposed to feel about that. But then all of a sudden, Emily gets an unexpected illness, which serves to be the title of the film. The Big Sick, which puts her in a hospital with an ambiguous, illness. And this hospital, by the way, is the 17th best in Chicago. Um, and this really acts as a catalyst for the narrative's pathos and to really get it running precisely. Um, and That's pretty much it. Uh, you know, so Kamal really has to balance how he's gonna um, finally tell his family at home, as well as the um, reveal his true feelings to her parents. In a sincere way, in a way that feels genuine. But that's something that this film really does. In retrospect, I remember, just watching a few minutes in, and I thought that this would be just, a melodramatic, type mess where it's like you don't really believe anything because just everything seems just too fast, too simple to be, pushing the narrative that far forward. But the script does some really nuanced type stuff that really details and fleshes out the narrative, and really accentuates, the passion project that this is. It balances tone, very well. Expertly maneuvering throughout the dichotomies and the eventual similarities that the similarities that brings an endearing heart to unexpected scenes. um, you know uh, it'll just hit you out of nowhere, with it'll be a lighthearted joke that'll just take the rug right out of under your feet, and then it'll go to you know like a gut busting laugh. It's very um, skillful in that way. This film has a dexterity that's beyond belief, really. And getting back to my point, the dichotomies and similarities of the parents' relationship, Kamal's family dynamic, the cultural acceptance, and the struggle, friendships. One of the friendships in particular, Kamal and Chris, really reminded me of Master of None. One of their friendships, Aziz Ansari, and I forgot his name. I should know his name. But there's a lot of similarities. Matter of fact, between this film and Master of None, which is also on Netflix. You guys should check it out. But the main thread line being that the cultural themes and cultural acceptance and uh, you know dealing with the traditions and romance. It has a similar narrative, but this is condensed, and it's a true story, as well as, I guess, Aziz Ansari's true story in that as well. But I'm getting off topic. But This really does have some great performances in it. I mentioned the unexpected faces in the crowd. Bo Burnham and should get her name right. Aidy Bryant. They have some acting chops that I didn't think they had. Bo Burnham has some, he has that dry sense of humor that really gets me. And then Bryant really, she has a cheerful charm to her that really bubbles from the screen, and really she really can do it with, she has chemistry with basically everyone in this film, and she probably obviously gets that from SNL. And Although, I mean, sometimes you do get a iffy performance here and there, but then you're just swept away under your feet by a great scene right after. So it just passes over really quick. Ray Romano, in a rare dramatic role, knocks it out of the park. Has great chemistry with her Holly Hunter, and she brings a fun charm to this film as well. Um, I guess the one gripe I have is the pacing issues. Sometimes, with most Judd Apatow films and projects, it starts to get a little long and feel drug out, and especially in the first act, it takes a while to get going. Um, but I mean, I can't really gripe it too hard. It's a unique film. It's almost it's a documentary, but it's fleshed out in film form in a very nuanced way. There's little details composed in individual scenes that really you know bring light to the pathos and the endearing nature to some of the film's subtle moments, which I really loved, really. But overall, I would say this is a great film. It's for the most part elegantly, vulnerable. It takes um, a while to get off the ground, as I mentioned, the pacing issues. But The Big Sick really is a catharsis the for for the film. Once she does get the illness, it acts as a pretty big catalyst to push everything that was really subtle in the beginning, as the perfect techniques that they were using. It really pushes it forward, and the film picks up from there. The film's skillful dexterity, as I mentioned, and tone and deadpan wit really complement the passion behind Kamal's eyes and screen presence, as well as being the one of the script writers. The directing is traditional and safe, but the editing and nuanced details in the compositions in the frame really give this film more momentum and heart, as I mentioned. And I recommend this film. I can see why it buzzed in film festivals. It's something special and to behold. So I'm gonna give this film a B+.